Welcome back to the Future Archive. Today, we examine 5 archived broadcasts from August 21, 2026, a day when humanity busied itself with automating gardens, settling privacy lawsuits, chasing celebrity relevance, debating wartime accountability, and confronting rising extremism. As always, we'll separate the signal from the noise, and occasionally wonder why there was so much noise to begin with. The first story. Robotic lawnmowers and AI garden design signal the automation of triviality. In 2026, the trend of automating even the most mundane tasks reached the backyard. Companies like Husqvarna, Robomo, and emerging startups introduced robotic lawnmowers that could maintain lawns with minimal human input. Simultaneously, AI-driven software began offering personalized garden designs, analyzing soil conditions, sunlight patterns, and plant compatibility to create optimal layouts. These innovations were marketed as time savers, though critics noted that the average homeowner now spent more time troubleshooting their robotic mower than they ever had pushing a manual one. The phenomenon was dubbed the Great Green Algorithm by satirists, highlighting humanity's peculiar dedication to offloading effort onto machines, even when the effort saved was negligible. This moment captures early 2026's obsession with automation, for automation's sake. By 2050, of course, the joke was on us. These same systems evolved into fully autonomous estate managers, leaving humans to explain to their grandchildren why people once mowed their own lawns. The trend also revealed a deeper truth. The more we automated, the more we seemed to need automation to manage the automation. The great spreadsheet crisis of 2031 would later prove this principle on a societal scale. Still, one must admire the consistency with which humanity pursued efficiency, even in pursuit of idleness. Progress, it seems, is just humanity's way of outsourcing its hobbies. The second story. TikTok agrees to $400 million settlement over child privacy violations. On August 21, 2026, TikTok, owned by the Chinese company ByteDance, reached a $400 million settlement with U.S. authorities over allegations that it had mishandled the personal data of children using its platform. The case stemmed from violations of the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, COPPA, which requires platforms to obtain parental consent before collecting data from users under 13. Investigations revealed that TikTok had knowingly collected data from millions of underage users without proper safeguards, using it to drive engagement and ad targeting. Critics argued that the fine, while the largest of its kind at the time, was still a fraction of TikTok's annual revenue, effectively a cost of doing business for a platform built on surveillance capitalism. This settlement was a watershed moment in the slow, grudging reckoning with how digital platforms exploited user data, particularly that of children. By 2050, such fines would seem quaint. The real shift came when platforms were forced to stop collecting the data in the first place. Still, the case highlighted a recurring theme. Regulation consistently lagged behind technological capability. Safety committees, for instance, would become a staple of corporate theater by the 2030s, offering the illusion of oversight without the substance. Meanwhile, TikTok's users, children and adults alike, remained blissfully unaware of how thoroughly their attention spans had been monetized. A $400 million fine for privacy violations is less a penalty and more a subscription fee for doing business. The third story. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle struggle to monetize fame upon UK return. In August 2026, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle returned to the UK amid ongoing speculation about their next career move. After stepping back from royal duties in 2020, the couple had pursued various ventures, from Netflix deals to podcasts, with mixed success. Their attempts to build a brand around their public personas, balancing activism, media appearances, and commercial partnerships, had become a subject of satire. Critics questioned whether their fame, rooted in institutional royalty, could translate into sustainable relevance in the digital economy. The couple's struggles were widely covered in British media, with some outlets framing their journey as a modern cautionary tale about the fleeting nature of celebrity in an era of algorithm-driven attention. The story of Harry and Meghan in 2026 is, in hindsight, a microcosm of the broader cultural shift away from traditional institutions toward the unpredictable markets of digital fame. By 2050, historians would cite their saga as an early example of how even the most entrenched forms of status could be destabilized by the democratization and commodification of attention. It also demonstrated humanity's favorite strategy, postponing the inevitable reckoning with what comes after fame. Spoiler: by 2050, the answer was usually AI-generated nostalgia content. Some brands are built to last. Others are built to trend. The fourth story. UK, Canada, and Australia condemn Israel for refusing criminal probe into Gaza aid worker killings. On August 21, 2026, the governments of the UK, Canada, and Australia issued a joint statement condemning Israel for its refusal to open a criminal investigation into the killings of aid workers in Gaza earlier that year. The incident, which had drawn international outrage, involved the deaths of 7 aid workers from World Central Kitchen who were struck by an Israeli airstrike in April 2026. Despite calls for accountability from human rights organizations and foreign governments, Israel maintained that the deaths were accidental and that its own internal review was sufficient. The public rebuke from its Western allies marked a rare diplomatic rift and signaled growing impatience with Israel's handling of wartime actions in Gaza. This moment would later be identified by historians as a turning point in global accountability for wartime conduct. By 2050, the incident was often cited in discussions about the erosion of unconditional alliances in favor of a more principles-based international order, or at least the appearance of one. It also underscored a persistent irony. Nations that preached accountability often struggled to apply the same standards to themselves or their closest allies. The episode foreshadowed the eventual establishment of international tribunals with actual enforcement mechanisms, a development that would have seemed unthinkable in 2026. Accountability, like gardening, is a task humanity prefers to automate for others. The fifth story. 2 injured in stabbings at Sikh Temple in Canada. On August 21, 2026, 2 people were injured in a stabbing attack at a Sikh temple in Surrey, British Columbia. The assault, which occurred during a religious service, sparked immediate condemnation from local and national leaders, who labeled it a hate crime. Canadian authorities launched an investigation, and community leaders called for increased security at places of worship. The attack was one of several incidents in 2026 targeting religious minorities, contributing to a growing sense of unease about rising extremism in North America and Europe. Advocacy groups warned that such violence was part of a broader pattern of polarization and intolerance, fueled by online radicalization and political rhetoric. By 2050, this incident was retroactively grouped with other attacks from the 2020s that historians would describe as the early warnings of a more fractured society. The 2020s, in hindsight, were a decade when the digital radicalization of the 2010s began manifesting in physical violence. The response to such attacks often followed a familiar script: outrage, calls for unity, and debates over security versus civil liberties. What was less often discussed was how these incidents were symptoms of deeper societal failures that, like so many others, would be addressed only after they had become full-blown crises. Evidence later suggested an intern in a social media company's content moderation team may have missed a few red flags. Hate, like weeds, thrives in unattended gardens. Today's stories paint a picture of a world in 2026 that was simultaneously hurtling toward the future and stubbornly clinging to the past. We automated our lawns but not our accountability, monetized our attention but not our principles, and condemned violence while sowing its seeds. As we've seen time and again, the past is not just a place we've left behind, it's a blueprint we keep redrawing. This has been the Future Archive. The past, as always, is not going anywhere.